Namaskar friends, I am Rajeshasudani Raqeeb, your co-host of Through Literary Lens. I welcome you wholeheartedly to this wonderful episode of Through Literary Lens. Vinod ji, namaskar.
Namaskar, how are you, Rajesh ji?
Fine, after so many days again we are back. Sorry for the gap, a long gap hiatus, but with this time we will more than compensate for it, Vinod ji.
Yeah.
And we have you with us as usual, but it is not as usual, friends. Dr. Vinod Asudani, as all of you know, is a renowned rationalist, humanist, thinker, cultural critic, and a master of many subjects. He has published 31 books till today, and they range from poetry to prose to social science to humanities and whatnot. They are in English, Hindi, Sindhi, and Urdu. But today, friends, Dr. Vinod Asudani has made a new foray into philosophy. Yes, friends, now he is a philosopher as well. Informally he was, but now formally he has published his 32nd book. And the book is entitled Beyond Fragmentation.
Friends, you can look at this newly published book, Beyond Fragmentation. And I am happy to share with you a very valuable foreword to this book has been contributed by none other than the wonderful poet and thinker Shri Rajeshasudani Raqeeb. And I must confess that he has done justice to the book in his scholarly foreword. So this book, my friends, is very much available on Kindle, Amazon.
And the title itself is quite intriguing, quite interesting, Beyond Fragmentation. And friends, I must confess that I and Vinodji, we have been talking a lot about many issues under the sun and even over it. So this book may be in a small way, I must say that I have written the foreword, yes, as Dr. Vinod told you, and it is the result of our wonderful discussions. Also, during the lockdown, COVID-induced lockdown, we had ample time to debate and discuss various niceties of life, and many things came forth. So this particular book,
Rajesh, and definitely before we shall proceed to talk about this book, in the entire history of philosophy, rather in the entire journey of human thought, one of the fundamental shortcomings, I should say, is that every thinker, every philosopher, every man of spirituality looks at the things, looks at the life and the world in a fragmentary way.
Yes.
Whatever he or she believes is truth, and it is considered to be the ultimate truth. And that is one of the limitations, rather major limitations of the journey of human thought.
That unification of sensibility is conspicuous by its absence. We look at our own domain, we perceive our own field and think that this explains everything.
Exactly. To give an example, whatever science believes, scientists believe that this is the only truth. Whatever men of religion believe, they believe that this is the only truth.
This is apparent from the theory of everything, Vinodji. Everybody has heard of theory of everything.
Yes.
Actually, that is a theory in physics.
Yes.
And they purport to, they said that it would finally explain each and everything. And we had a discussion with some eminent physicists also. And they confessed that yes, this is the misnomer actually. This theory is only the theory to unify the four fundamental known forces of physics.
Rajji, before you come to discuss the first theory in this book, let me share with our listeners and viewers that this book contains three interdisciplinary thought-provoking theories. The first is TCP model of truth that we are going to discuss today. And apart from that, there are two other theories as well.
One is the enlightenment theory, 10-step ladder of enlightenment, what is known as enlightenment.
10
commandments of enlightenment. And the third one is also there, and that relates to
cosmic interconnections.
That
is a Pancha
Mahabhutas. Mahabhutas are there in Hindu mythology as well as in the ancient sciences.
But this theory is
a new
one. But today, Rajesh, we'll confine ourselves to discuss the first theory, that is a TCP model of truth. the key word of
Yeah.
this entire book is unification.
Unification. And truth, as all of us are fascinated by truth, we hold the truth as the end value in itself. As Gandhi said, truth and non-violence, truth has been revered from times immemorial, and even the smallest of the children are taught the first principle of morality is speak truth.
Right. And speak truth, people misinterpret.
Yeah.
By speaking truth, they believe simply repeating the fact that has happened, simply repeating the statement that has already taken place or situation that has already taken place. That
We
is
don't
not-
even pause to reflect that what the truth is. What do we
And-
mean by truth?
Yeah, and in the entire journey of human beings, there have been thousands and millions of seekers of the truth.
Yeah.
Falsely believing as if the truth exists somewhere outside and you have to seek it out, you have to find it out. As if it is something objective, some objective which exists by itself, and just by undertaking a certain process, you will be able to find it out. And this is, in my opinion, Rajeshji,
Yeah.
a fundamental fallacy that we have committed about truth.
Yeah, this is a flawed notion of truth actually. As you said, the key word of the book is unification. So when we speak of truth, when we conceive truth, we have to conceive, or we are conceiving it in a unified manner. Now, what unification is there in the simple one word which we call as truth? You have very brilliantly exposed it as it is the interplay of text, context, and perception.
Yeah, that is why I have called it TCP, model of truth.
Model of
Before I shall explain these three words, let me tell you that there is a wide spectrum on which the truth is understood and interpreted. The first extreme is there is absolute, unchangeable, ultimate truth.
Yeah.
And the other extreme is there are as many truths as there is the number of human
That
beings
is
on
a
the earth.
postmodernist notion.
Postmodernist.
But
the-
first, when they say that absolute truth, on the one hand, people argue about the religious truth, which is absolute, as well as the truth of natural sciences also. Scientific truth also is supposed to be universal in nature.
But the reality lies somewhere between these two extremes. So when my theory is not it's not telling you that there is some truth that you have to find it out. It also does not tell you that there are innumerable truths and
Yeah.
uncountable truths.
Yeah.
It's also not like that.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to tell Rajeshji,
Ji.
that we have to construct truth.
Yeah.
We have to build truth. How this truth is built, there are primarily
Three pillars.
Three pillars.
Of
Three
every
elements.
truth.
Every truth.
Every truth. Be it scientific, be it religious, be whatever.
Yeah. Now, I have labeled them as text, context, and perception. So we need to understand what exactly these words mean. Text. Text is something which is fixed, permanent, unalterable. This is a concrete
Yeah.
truth.
Simple
Concrete
example
truth.
would be text in a book.
Text in a book.
Yeah.
Something is written.
Words are there.
Anybody can read those words.
And everybody would
Interpretation-
read the same words.
Same words. So this is a text. And to take it another example, scientific truth to very great extent is textual truth, because
nature.
that doesn't change from time to time,
Yeah.
or from place to place, or from person to person. So the scientific truth largely falls in the category of textual truth. That is the text element of the truth.
At least those of the natural sciences of physics and chemistry, and to a
Yes.
large extent biology,
Yes.
at the macro level at least.
Yes.
Yeah.
And contextual truth, it is the truth that arises out of socio-cultural context.
At a given time, in a
Yes.
given place.
Yes. And the perceptual truth is the individual subjective perception.
Perception of text and context.
So the best example of contextual truth is social sciences,
Yeah.
psychology, sociology, political science. They are contextual truth, because something, say liberty, say equality, say social justice. These are socio-cultural constructs. They do not exist as objective realities. So that is a contextual truth. And the perceptual truth, again, the best example is artistic truth, literary truth, aesthetic truth.
Yeah.
There's a perceptual truth, something that you perceive to be true. Say poetry. There's nothing in poetry. As Plato says, that is poetry is all false, all lie.
Yeah.
But you perceive beauty in it. You perceive so many emotions in it. You perceive a universal truth into it. That is entirely subjective. So these are the three elements when we try to understand any truth, these three elements have to be there. Only then you will understand what is the truth.
And now, Vinodji, it's not as if the particular fields are allocated to text, context, and perception. No, as we have said in the beginning, all truth is the interplay
Yes.
of all these three elements. What we have discussed so far, the scientific truth is textual. Predominantly, it is textual.
Yes.
Context and perception do matter. It's not that they don't matter, but primarily it is textual. Truth of social sciences is contextual predominantly.
But even in social sciences,
yeah,
there is some text.
There is some text and there is some perception. Perception is also almost equally important as context there. And here in art, primarily the truth depends on our perception, but still literature has a text. Any art has a text. If we are seeing the dance, the dancer is dancing and movements of the dancer are the text.
Exactly.
So in this way we can understand and we can try to get at with some examples would clarify the issue, I think, Vinodji.
Here, Rajesh,
Yeah.
I would like to remind our viewers
Yeah.
the famous conversation between the two Nobel laureates, Rabindranath
Einstein
Tagore,
and Tagore.
and way back that took place, I believe, in 1930s, right?
30s, yeah.
So they were discussing about the moon, right?
Yeah.
And Einstein says that even when nobody is there on the earth and nobody looks at the moon, still the moon will continue to be the moon.
Yeah. Einstein famously said, I refuse to believe that the moon doesn't shine when I look away from it.
Exactly. But Tagore says no, moon ceases to be moon if nobody looks at it.
Yeah.
Because moon is moon when somebody looks at it. Only then that is moon. Here you see Einstein is interpreting the truth of moon only
Purely in the context, textual way.
textual way. Textual. This is his truth of the moon is of the textual truth.
Light which is reflected from the moon and it reaches our retina.
Yeah.
That is the truth.
Even if nobody looks at the moon, he says even nobody is alive on the earth, still the moon
but
will
the
continue to be there.
light will be reflected, it will come to the earth.
But even if it seems to be absolutely right, but we have to understand. Imagine that there is nobody, no human being living on the earth. Who will understand that this is a moon? Moon itself will not understand that it is a moon.
Yeah.
So the moon is moon provided we perceive it to be a moon.
Our perception important. Moon to us is not the same as the moon to the tiger.
Exactly. So here Tagorean perspective is the perceptual truth.
Yeah, and the context, of course, it is in a particular context. We are living on the earth, and even our literary, socio-cultural context defines how the moon is perceived.
Exactly.
Somebody looks upon moon as Chandamama, somebody looks upon moon as his beloved, like that.
Exactly. And another famous example I would like to quote from Mahabharata of Devrat, who is well known as a Bhishma.
Due to his Bhishma pledge.
He takes a pledge, right, that he's not going to marry, and he will see the reflection of his father in whoever sits on the throne of Hastinapur. We know that legend, right?
Yeah.
Because Shantanu wanted to marry another woman, Satyavati, and he had already this son from Ganga, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And finally,
Satyavati's father said that what is the guarantee that Satyavati's progeny will be the king?
Yeah.
You are there, your sons will be there.
Yeah,
so he says, no, my sons won't be there because I won't marry.
Yes.
And I will look upon the incumbent of the throne as my favorite, and I will be with him. That's
now
it.
This pledge of Bhishma is contextual truth when it was taken.
Yeah.
It had relevance.
It has that relevance.
But later on, when when there was a controversy who will be the king,
and war was fought between Kauravas and Pandavas.
Context had altered, but Bhishma committed the mistake of sticking to the only textual truth. He completely disregarded the contextual truth.
Even though he knew logically that Kauravas are not they are corrupt, and he knew that Hastinapur won't be served by his siding with the Kauravas, but still he stuck to his.
So here we
pledge.
need to understand that truth is not something unalterable. It is a dynamic process. It changes with the context, and it also changes with the perception. And we should allow this textual truth to undergo these necessary changes under the impact of context and perception, so that continues to be relevant.
One other example, Gandhi's example, I remember,
Yes.
when he took the vow of not to take milk.
Yes.
And then finally the doctors prevailed upon him that you have to take milk
milk
if you want to survive. Then he introspected. He said, when I had taken the vow, I had imagined the cow's milk.
Yes.
So that was his subjective
Interpretation.
or context or perception of the truth. Then he changed it. He said, I can take goat's milk now.
So under the light of his perception, he changed his text. His text.
Yeah.
He was not as rigid as Bhishma.
Yeah.
He could have been as rigid as Bhishma and said, no, the milk is milk,
Milk.
whether it's a cow or goat.
Yeah.
But perception came to his rescue.
Yeah,
Therefore, whenever we see or whenever we accept any truth, we need to pay attention to all these three elements. Text, that
context.
is the original situation in which the truth came into
Original
existence.
action, moment, text, what is written, what is said,
yes,
words, whatever the text is.
And the present context in which we are trying to understand the situation.
Yeah, context is dynamic. It can change, but it can be intersubjectively agreed upon that what is the context.
Exactly. And perception when the truth is customized in terms of particular individual or a person.
Yeah.
So it is when we, in modern time, when we purchase anything, we get customized product.
Yeah.
So we have to customize even truth, because after all, truth is not something out of the world concept. It is there because it is useful, it is relevant, rather it has to be relevant and useful. Only then the validity of the truth is accepted. So if the truth is truth, even if it is invalid and unuseful to us, it is not something that we should crave for. And therefore, these three elements continuously interplay.
A very fine example, which very small anecdote, Vinodji.
Oh yes.
I would like to share. In a classroom,
a
teacher was teaching maths, and the truth of formal sciences is, people say it's simply truth. It's textual truth. It cannot vary from person to person.
Yes.
But here is an interesting anecdote, and it teaches us a lot. Teacher asked one boy that what is 2 plus 3? 2 plus 3 is 5.
Yes.
She said, suppose I give you 2 oranges and somebody gives you 3 oranges. How many oranges will be there? He said, Madam, 5. She asked another boy, I give you 2 apples and somebody else will give you 3 apples. How many apples will be there? He said, 6. Wrong. Don't you know 2 plus 3, 5? Madam, I know. Again, tell. I will give you 2 apples. Somebody else will give you 3 apples. How many apples will be there? He said, 6. How come? He said, Madam, I have already brought 1 apple in my lunchbox.
Exactly. So see, that is the context.
Yeah.
In case of that particular boy, if you give 5 apples, it makes 6.
6.
Alright. So this is very important. And one word of caution, Rajesh, I would like to say that still in contemporary times at least, people believe that something is truth provided it is endorsed by the scientific truth. So this is a fallacy. It may or may not be endorsed by the scientific canons. Still, it can be a truth, because truth has nothing to do with either the scientific approach or with the religious approach or with the social approach. In fact, it is an amalgamation of these 3 basic elements that we have just discussed here: context, text, and perception. And that is why I call it TCP model of the truth. I'm not sure that how far this discussion will help you to understand this TCP model and understand the real dynamics of the truth. So my recommendation is that you should go for the reading of this book, so that you can get a better perspective, better understanding of these 3 theories.
And I'm reminded of Simone de Beauvoir, who said, Vinodji, that many people, almost all the people commit this fallacy, including the scientists, including the philosophers. She said that we commit the fallacy of taking the one aspect and magnifying it and then looking at the world through that somebody says socially, somebody says equality, somebody says liberty, but she said it's the fallacious approach.
Exactly.
We should be balanced in our conceptualization, in our actions. We simply cannot take one aspect of any reality and frame our theories all around it.
And one more thing, people may argue that apart from these 3 elements, there can be many elements. But I have thought very deeply, all other elements finally can be adjusted to either of these 3 basic elements that I have enumerated in this theory.
Yeah, and these 3 elements, not only they do interplay, Vinodji, they are affected by one another.
Yes.
Like context is definitely affected by the text and the perception. Perception is affected by the context and the text, and even the text is affected by the context and perception.
Right. Here we are reminded of T.S. Eliot, who says that when when some great work of art arises on the scene,
Yeah.
entire monument of the art gets a little adjusted. And the past affects the present and present affects the past. So it is not that the text will only affect context and perception, but the process is vice versa as well. So this relationship between the three elements is complex,
Yes.
intricate and dynamic.
Yes, definitely.
So Rajesh, thank you very much that you have
Definitely.
tried to...
I believe our listeners, they would definitely read this book and think for themselves and get back to us with their comments. And other remaining two theories also, Vinodji, we will be discussing in our forthcoming episodes.
Right. Let me remind once again that this book, Beyond Fragmentation, is very much available on Kindle, Amazon. This book contains 3 thought-provoking interdisciplinary theory, TCP model of truth, 10 commandments of enlightenment, and interconnect Panch Mahabhutas. So Rajeshji, I look forward for the next episode where you are going to take up the discussion on the next theory as well.
Definitely, Vinodji.
So thank you very much, listeners, that you like this show. And if you really have something to say, please make your comments in the comment box. That always keep us going. Thank you very much.
Thank you.